So he was showing me about the movie The Matrix, and about Neo. And it's the scene where there's a bug that gets extracted from his belly, button, which is a significant thing. It gets extracted from his belly button. Right? So God said to me, I'm extracting the tactics of the enemy that are hidden inside of my people, that keep them from me and stop the flow of my spirit in their lives. All right. So in this scene, it's raining, which is significant. And Neo, he's about to get in the car. He doesn't really know what's going on. He just knows that he's going to find something out. And he knows that he doesn't like where he's at. He knows that something ain't right here. And he gets in this car, and he closes the door, and immediately what happens? Girl turns around from the front seat and puts a gun on him, and she says, "Take off your shirt." And he's like, "What?" Because it's abrupt. And God takes us to those abrupt places, those abrupt moments in our life, right? He allows that to happen to us so that it kind of shakes us. And then he's like, whatever, like, basically his pride raises up, right? So then she says, "Stop the car." She says, "It's either our way or the highway," right? It's either our way or the highway. So in this scene with Neo, he has to make a choice now. So he's in his pride. So he gets out of this car, right? Gets out of it. Well, he opens the door, and you see there's an alleyway there. He opens the door, and he says, and then right when he opens the door to get out, because he's caught up in his pride, he's like, you know what, I'm just gonna, whatever. He gets caught up in his pride. What's up, Chris? Good morning. So he gets caught up in his pride, right? And what happens? The one who he's gonna fall in love with, the one who he's destined to be in love with, destined to be married to, right? She's the one that puts his hand, she touches him. She puts his hand out, right? Touches him, and she says, "You gotta trust me." And this is significant. The one who he's destined to be in love with, she says, "You gotta trust me." And then she says to him, "You've already been down that road. You already know where that road leads." And the point is, it's a cycle. Do you want to continue walking down that cycle, or do you want to come into something new? And to come into something new, it's always an abrupt experience with the Lord to shift your way of thinking into his way of thinking. Right? So then what happens? So he closes the door. He stays in the car. He trusts in her, right? He trusts her, right? Because she's speaking from a place of love. This is purity. This is love. So then when they extract, she pulls out this big gun thing, puts it on his belly button, and she starts sucking, right? And they're saying that it's trying to get away. It's trying to get away. And you see it in his stomach moving around now. The thing that was hiding is now in plain sight, but it's still inside of him. You can see it now, right? And she's got a hold of it. She's like, "I got a hold of it." She's like, "I got it. I think I got it." See, that's what you got to grab a hold of the enemy, right? You got to grab a hold of what's inside of somebody and rip it out. You got to be able to see what's inside of somebody. That's the love of God. See, the person who loved him that he didn't know was destined to love him was the one who extracted the thing that was inside of him, right? So And it came from the belly button. Why? Because the belly button is the place where when you were in the womb, it gave you nourishment. It gave you life. It was the lifeline to your mother. It was a nourishment. As a child, it's the nourishment. It's the lifeline to your mother. So now, what are we? We're born again. So the enemy wants to enter into that lifeline to abort the baby that wants to be raised up by the Father in you so that you can be an heir or an inherent heir or a son of God, right? He wants to stop that inheritance. He doesn't want it to go any further. So he wants to put a stop on it, right? And this has to do with the rain, because the storm comes, the lightning and the thunder, and then the rain comes. And the rain is when you're entering into that place of multiplication, that place of life, because the rain comes from the throne room of God. The rain comes from the throne. The water flows out of the throne of God, right? The rivers of running waters, living waters, right? This is the thing that gives us life. And what does the enemy want to do? He wants to stop. He wants to put a stop. He wants to put a halt to that running water, because if you put a halt to that running water, it becomes stagnant. The water becomes stagnant, and it becomes filled with bacteria. It becomes filled with bugs. What happened? They put a bug in, right? They put a bug in him. It gets filled with bugs. It gets filled with water. So it's not good to drink. It's not good to consume. It's not good to feed on. And God wants to give us nourishment. He wants to give us nourishment to feed on. Right? So Neo is in the rain. He's being baptized. He's coming out of something and coming into new. It's transition. This is what God does every time. Because what comes after the rain? The rainbow. Every time after the rainbow comes covenant. And covenant is his promise to us. And it's that rainbow, it flows out of his throne room. So we have to come into that throne room authority. That's where our justification comes from. That's where our justice comes from. That's where our vision comes from, right? That's where we're standing on the sea of glass. No longer standing on the waves that toss us to and fro, but now the sea that tosses us to and fro. But now we're standing on the sea of glass, where we're standing on solid ground. We're standing on firm ground, and that's before the throne. How do we have access? Because we see the Son. We see the Son, so we see the Father, right? Who's the Son? It's Jesus. We see the Son, so we see the Father, right? Jesus walked on water. He stood because he was in the throne room. His perception, his being was in the throne room. Yeah, he was on earth, but his being was in the throne room. So we saw from that place. So Jesus saw from that place, and because Jesus saw from that place, he manifested it into this world. He stood on water. He stood on the sea of glass, even though the sea that he stood on this earth was rocking back and forth. And then Peter had to get he focused on Jesus. He focused on the Son. So because Peter focused on the Son, it transitioned him into the place where the Father was. So because he saw the Son, he saw the Father. Who was the only one who saw this, who the Son really was? And it was Peter. And what did Peter say? Peter said, "You are the Christ. You are the anointed one. You are the Son of God," right? And he said that you could only have gotten by my Father, right? So he was showing him his perspective. You didn't get this in an earthly perspective because of earthly ways, because the enemy wants to control us by earthly ways. He wants to cut off our source. Again, cut off our source. Cut off the image. What's our connection to the throne room? It's Christ. Christ is that image, right? The image of Christ. So if the enemy can distort our image of who he is, and he can distort the image of who the Father is, and we can never come into the power and the strength and then the justification of who he is in our life. And it only takes one. It only takes one to agree, right? And that's who agreed? Jesus. So now, if we come into agreement That's why he's in heavenly places, because now he needs us to come into agreement. He needs us to come into agreement with his word, with his image, right? So Peter, he came into agreement, right? So as long as he stayed in agreement, he was able to walk on water. But what happened? The wind came. The severing came, right? What are we talking about? We're talking about Neo, right? Why was that bug implanted in him? Because it's a tactical device, a bug. It's a tactical device to keep you separated from the Father so you can't destroy the false reality that you're in, the false realm, the realm of influence that you're in, right? So you have to extract that bug. So now that this is the time where God is extracting the bug is the tactic of the enemy. Okay, so going back to Peter. So when the wind came, what happened? Peter fell in. He fell in to the water. The waves were tossing him now. Now, let not a double-minded man think he'll receive anything from the Lord. From the Lord, he's like the waves of the sea being tossed to and fro, right? This is where the enemy wants to keep you, in confusion, in the place of confusion, Babylon, right? Because you won't receive anything from God. God wants you to receive his life, the life that flows from him. And the enemy wants to sever that life, right? He wants to sever that life so that you don't receive justification. So you don't receive the government of God in your life. What is the government of God in your life? It's his rule. We rule and reign in heavenly places. We won't rule and reign because we're being ruled, right? He wants to rule over us. He wants to keep us bound to this world, right? That's why they implanted that bug. It's a tactical device. I keep saying that because that's what the enemy's been doing to his people, to the people of God, to the church. This is the church. This is a wake-up call to the church. You got to press in. You can't move in pride because you're used to what you're used to. That old thing, that stagnant thing, the regurgitated thing. No, you got to let that go. God gave you, right? God gave you, but then the enemy cut off the source because you stopped coming, because he caused you to look at the thing that he gave you and to think that's more important than the one that it came from. That's how the enemy gets you, because it's the same thing he did. He rules you by his greatest flaw. His greatest flaw is that he looked upon himself, right? So he rules us by the same thing. So when the God gives us, the enemy wants to cut you off from the source that gave. And why? To get you focused on what was given. And that thing that was given becomes stagnant. It becomes perverted. Anything that God gave can be perverted, right? It can be perverted. That's what the enemy did. In the beginning, it was all good. It was all good. There was no flaw, right? We lifted up our hearts. He lifted up his heart against the Lord, and it became perverted. But for something to be perverted, it just has to be twisted back, right? So you can extract that bug. You can get it out the way. You can speak to the life in a person, right? God said to me one time, if you can see me in anything, you can reach anyone. So we can reach anyone. That's why I'm speaking about a movie, because a movie, you can see him in anything. If you can see me in anything, you can reach anyone. Like, what does the church want to do? What does the religion want to do? It wants to say, this is bad. This is good. Everything is black and white. I figured everything out. So I can judge everything, right? So I can judge everything, but I judge wrongly, and I'm judging by stagnant water because I don't have the judgment that's in the throne room. That's up there. So I'm not judging right. So I'm being judged, and I'm stuck because he's the accuser of the brethren, to keep you stuck. And what does he do? He wants to lift you up in pride so that he can accuse you, so that he can keep you in that stagnant water. And then you get frustrated, and your frustrations come out in judgment against other people because you can't see. My point is, if you're not seeking God, you won't see where his redemption is of all creation. Because if you can see him in everything, you can reach anyone. You can reach anyone because he's placed seeds in anyone. And what do? Rivers of living water flow out of us, right? We got to let go of that old water. We got to bring new water. And then we can pour that water on those seeds and we can watch them grow in other people, right? Why? Because we recognize the seed. We recognize it because we spend time, relationship, time in the throne room, in the place we're being watered. We're being watered. Our garden, the Garden of Eden, we're being comforted. So now we're able to bring comfort to the one who needs comfort. You know, I forget the name of the girl, but the one that Neo was going to fall in love with, she came from a different place. She brought the comfort to Neo. What did she say to him? You got to trust me. She spoke from the place of love, right? That brought him comfort. She's the one that extracted the thing that was inside of him that was hiding, the bug that was inside of him that was hiding, to keep him in his place, in his false sense of comfort, where he understood everything, where he figured everything out. That's the stagnant water, right? To figure everything out. So what is God doing now? He's ruffling our feathers. What happens when you get your feathers ruffled? You produce new feathers. You can fly. He's ruffling our feathers. What is God doing now? He's bringing us into a storm. Right? What comes after the storm? The rainbow. I think I just said that, but the rainbow comes. So what is the rainbow? It's his covenant. He says, this is where I remember my time with you. So he takes an old thing and brings it new. He makes it new. To remember. And to remember is the word sakar. Sakar, it's in the Bible. I mean, it's a Hebrew word that's in the Bible. And every time he says that, sakar, which is the number 7, which has to do with him crowning us. It has to do with his scepter bringing down justification in our lives, right? The rule of the king in our lives. That's the covenant authority. The number 7 is the car, the covenant. Remember, the every time you see that rainbow, remember, God says. Because that's my governmental authority. 7 colors in a rainbow, representing the 7 spirits of God, representing the fullness of God. This is what we're coming into. And we only come into it if we don't draw back when this stuff happens, but we press in. Right? Neo had to make a decision. And he was comforted by, I don't know why I can't remember his name, but he was comforted by the one who he was going to fall in love with. He was comforted by the one he was going to fall in love with. What is God? When God, think about this. He brings back to our remembrance the love. What does it say in Ephesians? You've lost your first love. You've forgotten your first love, right? He's bringing back to remembrance the love that you had, the love that you shared. It's about marriage. It's about the sanctity of marriage. It's about coming back together. What does he do? He woos us to come into him. That's how Neo said, okay, I'm going to close this door because she spoke to me from a place of love. And he accepted that. He recognized that. And now that place of love is now able to extract that bug that was hiding in him to keep him from the place that was going to set him free. From that false reality that he was in. So there's so much revelation to this. There's so much understanding to this, and God just wanted me to share it with you guys. I could go on and on and on about it. I'm not, but it's powerful. You know, going back to it, I just want to say this: religion is a dead thing. It causes you to judge wrongly. It causes you, because you're supposed to judge. You're supposed to judge. But it causes you to judge wrongly. It causes you to judge black and white. It causes you to try to figure things out. What's it? It's that white and black thing. It makes things black and white. The yin and yang. That's what I want to say. The yin and yang. It causes you to say things one way or the other. You know, that's evil. That's bad. That's evil. That's bad. If you look at people like that, is anybody really all evil or just all bad? No. But if we see them and we judge them like that, we can never extract what's inside of them. We can never see the seed that needs to grow. So we won't water it and it won't grow. It won't grow. Why? Because we give up on them. Because we lose hope. We don't have... Isn't that what marriage is about? It's about relationship, right? It's about coming together. That's true unity. That's true unity. But the enemy, the devil, he wants to make things black and white, colorless in your life. Colorless. Where does color come from? It comes from the throne room. Going back to the rainbow. That's where the covenant comes from. That's where the governmental authority comes from. The kingship comes from. That's where you're justified, right? That's where things become beautiful to you. That's where you grow into a beautiful garden. Like all these things, it's a heavenly place. It comes from a heavenly place. And then things aren't boring and stagnant and dull anymore. You think people want to listen to somebody regurgitate the same bullshit every time? No. They want to hear something new. They want to hear something that they've never heard before because it came from the throne room. I've never heard before, and I hear it, so it impassions me to speak about it because I've never heard it before. So now I'm filled with the passion of God to then go and speak it to other people. I'm not speaking something in judgment or regurgitated things because I want to prove who I am. I don't care to prove who I am. I want to show who he is. I want to show who he is. And that's what the love of God does for you. It shows and it shows the image of Christ through you. The image of Christ through you and revealing the heart of the Father. That's what the Son does. So we're sons of God when we reveal who Jesus is. And that reveals who the Father is, the heart of the Father. And that joins us together. Because what does the enemy want to do? He wants to divide. He brings division, right? He wants to bring division. That's what religion does. It brings division. If you can look at religion, just look at it. How many denominations are there? How many ways of seeing things? No, this is our way. No, this is our way. I'm not saying it wasn't ever good, but guess what? It becomes perverted. Because the enemy gets into it and you held on to it because of pride, and now it becomes stagnant and dead. And now you keep regurgitating the same thing when you need to let it go and let it die. You need to let it die because that thing that dies becomes fertilizer for the ground to then bring rebirth. You got to let it die. You got to let it go. But what happens? Because we get hit, we don't realize and we can't even see who God is. So then we get hit and we get put in these awkward positions that actually raise up what's inside of us, hidden inside of us. But then instead of letting it go, we want to control and hold on to it. And then we can't receive that covenant in our lives. We can't come into new. We can't be reborn. We can't come into new life. We can't have new water. So we hold on to the old because of fear. We're afraid to lose what we've got. But doesn't it say, what did Jesus say? Even the little bit that you have will be taken away. Even the little bit that you have is going to be taken away. Why? Because you're not meant to hold on to it. You're meant to give it to other people. You got to give it away. God said something to me the other day. There's no greater love but that you lay your life down for your friend. Right? How do you know what a friend is? How do you know how to lay your life down for a friend when you don't even understand what a friend is? Who shows you who a friend is? He did. He does because he laid his life down for you. And until you give up your life for him, how are you ever going to come into his life and lay it down for other people? So then you're out of order and you're trying to lay your life down and you don't even know how to do it. You don't even know how to do it. We don't know how to do it. So God is twisting back, taking out the perversion from the things that have been perverted in his church, in his bride. What is the bride? The bride is the one that's prepared for Jesus to come into union, right? It's about love. It's about purity and love. A bride without spot or wrinkle. So what is he doing? He's purifying his bride. He's purifying his bride. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of this. Talk to you later. Oh, man. Okay, I'm trying to figure out.